So that pretty much goes over all of the panel options and how to make the add-on look pretty good. You'll need to go through the bars section to find a texture for the bars themselves that fit your own personal style, and you can change the size of everything right here in the sizing tab, as well as what's being displayed. Like if you don't want the headers, then you can just display uncheck that there. So once we have the add-on looking pretty good, we're going to need to go to the spells tab, and this is going to be where we set up our keybinds. So the add-on functions all in mouse overs. You have mouse buttons right here listed. If you use a MMO mouse, like a Naga, then the buttons on the side of your mouse are probably not actually mouse buttons. They are probably keybinds to your keyboard, and these are not going to work for those. So if we need to set up some keybinds for our Naga, we can go to keys local, and we can go to add, and you can type in the name of a spell, and you can bind your keybind right here, so numpad 1. So now when I use numpad 1, I will heal myself. So you're also given a bunch of modifier keys for all of these mouse buttons that you do have though. So it opens up a lot of keybinds as well. You can see as well, if you type in the name of the spell like this with the rank in parentheses right afterwards, you can designate what rank spell you want to use on top of that. And the mouse wheel up and down is also affected by all of these modifier keys as well. So you can really have a lot more keybinds that you don't need to have on your bars, because you can just assign them all right here. There's also some miscellaneous settings, and by default we have these smart cast options already checked. I choose personally to uncheck this smart cast for cleanse, because what this is going to do is if you drop combat and someone has a debuff on them that you can cleanse, then when you click on their frame, it is going to cleanse them first. And sometimes you can find yourself in a position like maybe you're in a battleground where you've dropped combat and you need to heal your teammate, and you accidentally cleansed UA off of them because the add-on cleansed them first, and you just ended up killing yourself, and you know, that just, it doesn't look good, and you didn't even mean to do it. So I usually uncheck cleanse, but if you leave resurrect on and battle res, it will still try and res people if you're out of combat, or battle res if you're a druid and while you're in combat. That's pretty much what I'll go into for spells. After spells, we'll look at this thing called VuhDo Buff Watch. So for VuhDo Buff Watch, we have this buffs tab, which shows you all of your own self-cast buffs. And for each one of these that you check, we'll go into the buff watch. And this will just kind of keep track of how many people and the duration of your buffs. And you can also click on the add-on right here to rebuff. This is pretty nice to have for 5-mans, and classic for 40-mans or raid groups. If you try to rebuff through this, then it will just only self-cast, so it's not going to rebuff your whole group just by single clicking. But you can still have a little visual indicator for the buffs that are going on. If you don't want to show this though, you can go to general and you can uncheck enabled and it'll go away. But you can still also get some benefits from this tab, and you can change the bar color if someone is missing a buff. So if someone's missing fortitude, we can just click on this little bar and we can change like to this blue. And now if someone's missing fortitude, then their bar is going to turn blue. So you can still get a little bit of a visual indicator if you don't want the buff watch by changing the bar color here. But there might also be some buffs that you want to keep track of that aren't your own, and they aren't going to be in this list. Or maybe some debuffs, and we're going to need to go to the debuff tab for that. By default, we're not going to show any debuff icons, so we'll need to check that. And it'll only show boss only icons if you leave that one checked. So if we uncheck that, then we can see icons from sources other than a boss. As well as removable only. If you want to see all of the debuffs, then you can uncheck that. I typically leave removable only on because you're limited on the amount of icons that you can have. The add-on will only let you have up to a max number of 5 debuffs as far as icons are concerned. And really beyond that, it starts to get really cluttered, and it's kind of hard to keep track of everything that's going on anyways, especially if you're in a 40-man group. You're looking at a lot of icons. So you might want to have some custom debuffs though, or have some of these checked so that they filter out. Under the custom tab, we can set custom debuffs just by typing in the name of the buff. You can also do custom buffs as well, and we have a whole bunch of settings for that particular buff or debuff. So let's say we do one for polymorph. I'll type in polymorph and hit save, and it'll go into this list. And we get a whole bunch of settings here that we can do so that we can change the bar color or maybe have a glow if someone is polymorphed. If you have this icon checked here, then it will override your standard settings for the icons. So even if it's something that you can't remove and you still have the icon shown, then it's still going to show the icon and it's still going to do all of your other stuff as well. And then we have some visual settings for the actual size of the icons and where they're positioned on the frame themselves. And this is where you can set the maximum number of debuffs so that you can show up to 5, or by default it's going to be at 3. And then that pretty much goes over most of the general settings. Once you have everything looking the way you want to, you got your keybinds set up, you'll want to go over to this tools tab, and this is where we can save our profile. You can just type in the name of it and you can save it, and it'll go into this list that you can choose from. You can also have certain profiles activate based on certain group sizes. So if you have a 40-man setup that has maybe smaller bars than your 10-man setup, then you can have those activate when you go into a size of that group, or a group of that size. Jeez. Also, the profiles will not save your key bindings by default. On the right hand side, we have key layouts, which will allow you to save your key binding layouts. So if you have different key bindings for different specs, then you can just save your key layout here and you can swap between them easily. You can also export and import profiles. There are profiles online that you can download and you can go through, and you can just import them here and make your life a little bit easier than having to go through all of the settings. But it's good to familiarize yourself where everything is at, so that if there's anything in one of those profiles that you know, maybe you don't want or you want to add to, then you can do so. And that's pretty much it for the add-on. I'll show you quickly what my two profiles that I use look like. My 40-man setup looks like this. I'll show you a 40-man group. The test doesn't show you like what icons are actually shown. It doesn't show you debuff icons, but you can show kind of what it looks like. You can see that people that have the red square around them mean they have the aggro, and their names are different colors, meaning that they have different debuffs. It fits very cleanly on my screen and gives me a lot of visual indication, as well as having some custom debuff options for whatever you want to set up, you know what I mean? I also have a smaller group size setup that I use for smaller groups, obviously. It's just basically the same information is shown, but the bars are a little bit bigger so that I can see everything a little bit better. That's pretty much it for now. Hopefully you'll be able to go through the add-on and set it up and tailor it to, you know, your own personal needs and how you want it to use it. And hopefully it helps you become a better or more efficient healer. Have a good one.